Andjela and I had the Iraq War. What just happened?
Click to exit full screen mode.
Okay. Alright, so we had the Iraq War. We did a video kind of on 9/11 just to start.
Just relax. You know it worked. We just tested it, right?
Yeah. Okay, so so we just have a map of Iraq and like all the cities in Iraq. So Iraq is right there, and then there's Baghdad. So the major figures in this war were George Bush, which was the president of the United States, Dick Cheney, which was the vice president of the United States, Tony Blair, who was the prime minister of the United Kingdom, and then Saddam Hussein, who was the fifth president of Iraq. So the start of the war was the 9/11, which was a video. So basically, the United States didn't like how Saddam had connections with Al Qaeda. So he questioned that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction, which are like the WMDs. And so he went to the United Nations, and Bush went to the United Nations and gave Iraq 30 days to get rid of all like their supposed WMDs. And when they didn't, George Bush gave Saddam 48 hours to get out of Iraq, or else he would start the war, which he didn't, and so the war started. And people said that America and Britain quickly won the war, but they lost the peace because they won the war very fast, the battle part. So in 2003, started was the invasion of the war, and it was the fall of Baghdad, so like the whole city. Bush declares an end to major military operations after they bombed Iraq, and it was the first government that was after like Saddam, after Saddam Hussein was captured. 2004, there was a suicide bomber who went to the United Nations and just bombed it after Bush like called an end to all like the operations. The weapons of mass destruction church was aborted, and people said that there were no bombs to begin with, and that they made a mistake. David Kay, the U.S. weapon inspector, says that we were almost all wrong. So basically, there wasn't any weapons of mass destruction to begin with. And then there was a battle of Fallujah. There were 50,000 U.S. and Iraq forces that went into Fallujah before the first election. And then the first government after Saddam was the Iraqi interim government, which was, they picked exiled politicians that like Saddam Hussein exiled, but there wasn't very much like public support. So they elected Ayed Alawi as the prime minister, and it was mostly a Shiite majority like in the government, and their job was to prepare for like the election in 2005. There were 8 members, and their job was to oversee the elections and advise with the UN. In 2005, the elections were held. Saddam Hussein's trial began, and then they picked the Iraqi transitional government, and that was, there's a prime minister who was Ibrahim al-Jaharbi. There was President Jalali Tesmafi, I don't know how to say it. And they were to pass laws and oversee the work of the executive people. So in 2006, they finally took like the Maliki government, and the Al-Askari Mosque was destroyed, which was that was like the holiest site for like the Shiites, which caused even more tension between the Sunnis and the Shias. They named Nouri al-Maliki the prime minister, and then Abu Musab al-Zakawi was killed, and he was the leader of Al-Qaeda, and he was killed in an airstrike by the United States. And then finally Saddam Hussein was sentenced to death by hanging, and he was guilty of crimes against humanity.
So in 2007, January 10th, troop surge. President Bush announced a new way forward in Iraq, willing to commit an additional 20,000 troops and to bring stability in and around Baghdad and the city they were. In June 1st, the so-called awakening begins in Anbar province and spreads to other parts of Iraq. This helped diminish insurgent violence in the second half of 2007. In August 19th, Baghdad bombing, 3 coordinated truck bomb attacks and a number of mortar strikes. Decimated villages of military Yazidis, and hundreds were killed and wounded. On September 14th, targeting U.S. allies. After awakening, making the headway, insurgent target Sanis and New working with U.S. And on December 13th, 5 years look back on the war. So like soldiers and all the people like give a 5-year look back, and nearly 4,000 U.S. troops were dead and 30,000 have been wounded in 5 years. In 2008, Iraq's chief dominated government welcomes Iraq's president Ahmadinejad to Baghdad. So he was their president. On April 23rd, change of leadership, President Bush taps the U.S. Commanding general in Iraq, so they kind of. In 2008, September 1st was first step toward eventual U.S. withdrawal, and in November 4th, in U.S. Obama became a president, so everything changed. In 2009, February 1st, the drawdown begins, and on June 30th, so-called SOFA is a status of force agreement, so they were forced to agree between Iraq and U.S., so that's why it's called SOFA. December 1st was a full month in which there are no U.S. combat deaths since the beginning of the war. So finally in 2009, from starting the war, there were no American troops dead, and which kind of brought a smile to their faces. In 2010, March 7th, Iraqi parliamentary elections are held, and on August 31st, the U.S. officially ends a combat mission in Iraq. On October 21st, President Barack Obama announces that the remaining 39,000 U.S. troops will return from Iraq until the end of 2011 to U.S. and to their homes. And finally, December 18th, the last U.S. soldiers leave Iraq, ending nearly 9-year military mission. So, in conclusion, there's no doubt that the Iraq war was an economic strain for U.S., but the reason for the war is very questionable. Was vengeance the best solution? America is very grateful for the assassination of Osama bin Laden, but does this guarantee its national security? So far, U.S. has not seen a positive impact from the war, only nearly decades of devastation of human loss and economic repression. However, the war had finally ended. Now people are hoping for clear and bright information for America. And these are our sources, and that's it.